All right, welcome to TYT Interviews. Guess what kind of interview we have? You know it. You know it's another great interview. Okay, today we have with us Ashley Williams. She is the person who interrupted a Hillary Clinton speech and got tremendous attention for it. And I applauded her on air for it because she brought up a very, very important issue that the whole country needs to discuss. She's a black queer organizer from Charlotte. Ashley, it's great to have you on the Young Turks.
Thanks for having me, Cenk.
All right, great. So first off, I know we discussed this a little bit on the show, but for those that didn't hear it, and I'd like to get some more background on it too, how'd you get into this fancy Hillary Clinton fundraiser in South Carolina to begin with?
Yeah, so we got in the same way that all the other guests got in who attended. There were paid tickets. I know that they began at $500, and I believe that people were there who paid up to $10,000.
Jeez, I hope you weren't one of them.
No, not that much.
Okay, so what made you want to go and protest Hillary Clinton in the first place?
I'm really concerned about her record with mass incarceration. I'm really concerned about her legacy, the legacy that she's had of courting black voters and selling out black communities. I'm really concerned that someone who helped lay the foundation for mass incarceration wants me to vote for them for president.
That's interesting because I think a lot of people, not us, but a lot of people would think, whoa, wait a minute, I thought Hillary Clinton was on the right side on African-American issues. Why are you so concerned about this?
So being a black person from Fayetteville, North Carolina, and then moving to Charlotte, I've been able to see like what happens to communities when people are ripped out of them. So I'm talking about people's sons, people's moms, people's dads. Like I and other people of color have felt the effects of mass incarceration. They're real. We're feeling them today. We've been feeling them for the last 20 and 30 years. And now it's time to like move into the space of like, what are we going to do about it? I don't know about y'all, but I can't deal with this anymore. And people in my communities, they can't handle it anymore. And so we need to start holding these politicians accountable, especially because what people are telling us in terms of being a young voter is that this might be the most important election of our lifetime. And so there's a lot at stake here.
Yeah. So before we get into Hillary Clinton's record a little bit more thoroughly, tell me about your background. So right now, are you a student? Are you, you are?
Yes, I'm a graduate student at UNC-Charlotte in ethics and applied philosophy. Before I started this MA program, I was studying dance and philosophy at the same institution. I'm really interested in abolishing the police here in Charlotte, and like while we're trying to get to that point, holding them accountable for killing us. I am interested in a lot of student resistance and student mobilization. So a couple months ago, I had a meeting with my friends and the chancellor, and we were really upset with him and we wanted him to know that he makes too much money. And we've got our friends and our adjunct faculty and other faculty members and staff who are poor. So we were trying to hold him accountable for that. Also, like, I'm really interested in Black Palestinian solidarity. I went to an event today at the Department of Homeland Security here in Charlotte because, you know, I'm sure y'all know, but like they're really up in the ante on the deportations, especially here in Charlotte. We've got kids that are like being removed from schools, being removed from their homes, taken off of their bus stops. And so I am really interested in being about my brothers and sisters' causes as well. I'm identifying patriarchy, white supremacy, capitalism as all common threats. And so I'm really interested in like being a part of everybody's causes who wants to get free.
Okay, I find that wonderfully refreshing because number one, I found someone more liberal than me. So yes, mission accomplished. Okay. Second of all, no, but in reality, kidding aside, although you definitely are more liberal, is that it's great to have young, energetic people who are actually fighting back. You know,
Yeah.
whether we agree on every part of it or not is not nearly as important as this energy in the country of saying, I can't take it anymore. We've got to do something. I mean, we feel it every day on the show. Like, can you just please stop shooting us, right?
Yes.
It's not too much to ask for. Now, I'm not sure I'd go as far as abolishing the police in Charlotte.
Why not?
Okay, but at least you're fighting back, and so
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So another interview, you'll have to explain to me what you do if you do abolish the police altogether, because that sounds fascinating. I love the Black Palestinian solidarity. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I'd
So
like to have these conversations with you.
good, good. So, but now on this protest you did about Hillary Clinton, again, I think even a lot of African Americans are going to say, "Whoa, Ashley, take it easy." Now, the Clintons have been really good to the African American community. Why do you think that's not factual? Why do you disagree with that?
I mean, we know that she helped lay the foundation for mass incarceration. We know we have evidence, like we can like look to the speeches, the one that I referenced or other ones that she gave. So we also know that like during the 90s, during the time of this 1994 crime bill, Hillary Clinton went pretty hard, like championing this bill across the country, trying to garner support, like political support and social support. And so like we have to start paying attention. And you mentioned like young people who are energetic, and I guess like one of the things I really want people to focus on is like not only are we energetic and we're interested, but we're going to be critical. So we're not just going to accept any Bernie Sanders or any Hillary Clinton that's asking for our votes. I'm checking people's records. I'm making sure that there are consistencies, and at the end of the day, I really want to make sure that I can trust these folks. And I just wasn't feeling that with Hillary Clinton. I'm not feeling that.
And so your sign said, "And bring them to heel," which
Yes.
is the end of her super predator quote from in the 1990s. We played that on the show a couple of weeks ago, and it feels a little devastating. That's such a powerful quote.
Yeah.
Why did you choose to put that portion of the quote, not the super predator part, but that ending on your sign?
Yeah, so we actually, in the final hours leading up to the action, we thought about the super predator quote or the we have to bring them to heel. And I think that we thought that like the super predator quote, like I've been pretty clear about how that kind of language has been used to pathologize and demonize Black bodies, right? And so we wanted to make sure that whatever words we were going to confront her with that were her own, it would be hard to like say that we misconstrued them. And, we didn't really escape that exactly, but I thought that we have to bring them to heel was like, okay, you can't get out of this. Like you said this very specific thing and you meant this very specific thing. It carries a lot of intention with it. And so I thought that we would be more successful by confronting her with those words of her own.
Yeah, that was more visceral, that line to me, than even the super predator line.
Yes.
She said, these young kids, they claim later, no, we didn't necessarily mean African American kids, but we knew exactly what they were talking about. Those racially coded language, especially super predators. She said our super predators, they have no conscience, no empathy. We have to bring them to heel, though. It just feels so historically ugly, right? And part of why your action against her was successful because she made the mistake of reading your sign, when she had the mic. And then as she's reading her own words, bring them to heel, we're like, oh no.
Right.
Now, they wound up escorting you out, the Secret Service did.
Yes.
And I wonder how you felt about that, because she said, hey, you're the first, as they're escorting you out, she said, you're the first person to ask me about that. And afterwards, for people that don't know, the next day she apologized for it, kind of, right? But how did you feel about how that whole thing went down?
I think it was very interesting the way in which I was escorted out. I knew that I wanted to not get arrested, and so I was going to comply at that point. And they made it very clear to me that they were trying not to be rough with me. There was a Secret Service agent already on the outside of the house, and the one who escorted me out, he was like holding me. You can see in the video, like holding my body as I'm like being escorted out the door. And as I was being escorted, I kind of tripped over my own feet, not to anyone's fault except for my own. And the guy on the outside, the Secret Service agent, was like, hey, be very careful with her. Like, don't hurt her. And the guy who is escorting me out was like, I'm not, like, I'm being very careful. And I was like, okay, they're trying to communicate to me. They just wanted me to wanted me to feel that like there wasn't any funny business going on. I will say that like at the point, one of the first things that one of the other Secret Service agents asked me was if I was feeling okay. And I thought that was really interesting, especially when I think about the quote, we have to bring them to heel. And I talk about this like interesting way of pathologizing people's behaviors. And so like I couldn't have interrupted a Hillary Clinton fundraiser because I was Black and really upset about mass incarceration. Like I had to be feeling not okay or not of a sound mind is the way I was taking it. And so I thought that was really interesting. One of my friends who taped the video, as they were kind of talking to me and like asking me lots of questions, I said, I don't want to talk to you. I want a lawyer and I want to leave. And that's what we're trained to do at that point. And they were not kind of listening to that. They were going on and on questioning me. And my friend said, hey, are you trying to leave? And I said, yes, I'm trying to leave. And he asked the officers if I was being detained. And they said no. And we walked off. And so that was kind of frightening for me because even though I felt like I really did this empowering thing, I wasn't sure how much power I had in that moment with them questioning me. It wasn't clear to me that I could leave until we asked and there was an answer.
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of activists in my life, and there is a magic sentence, which is,
yes.
Am I being detained or am I free to leave? So they have to answer that in an honest way. And now you got to be careful, right? Because there's a lot of cops, and part of the reason Ashley wants to ban the cops in Charlotte is there's a lot of cops who won't do it the legal way, and they'll be like, right. Oh yeah, and they'll feel like you're disrespecting them, and then a world of trouble ensues. But you have every right to ask, am I free to leave or am I being detained? Mm-hmm. And there's no reason to detain you for what you did. You paid to get into the event, you weren't trespassing, and you exercised your freedom of speech. Right. So you did the right thing there. Ashley, the only point of criticism I had for you and how that went down, and it's not criticism in terms of like you shouldn't have done it, but in terms of how, was I wondered if there was a moment you could have paused to give her a moment to answer, and if she didn't answer that it looks worse in a sense. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, I wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, so I can say that I'm really interested in resistance. And for me, resistance looks like this thing that doesn't stop. It looks like this person that asks Hillary Clinton without really giving her an opportunity to say something back, like these really meaningful questions. Because the reality of the situation is that she's had 20 years to answer these questions. And at that point, like it was more about me trying to keep her off balance. I also think that, like, we have to hold people accountable in a way that feels comfortable to us, and that way felt really comfortable to me. And so I felt like I did the right thing. I got a lot of criticism about not giving her an opportunity, but when I think about the kind of like vigorous nature and the violence of mass incarceration, it doesn't really like give people a chance either, right? Like it keeps getting you. It keeps messing you over. Like that's the reason why people get reintegrated into society and they can't find jobs and they can't get an education and they're poor. So sometimes it's necessary to meet like the violence that's being perpetuated on you with the same amount of violence and the same amount of force. And that's what I felt like I was doing. And so I completely stand by my decision to do that.
Right, you use rhetorical force in that case and not violence, obviously. And so that's a giant, giant difference.
Yeah, different kind of violence, right?
Yeah, and you wouldn't have had that luxury if the shoe was on the other foot, right? Not in the case of Hillary Clinton, but in the case of police and authority figures, et cetera. So I get it. I still might have done it differently, but that's okay. I'm not the one who did the protest. You're the one who did the protest. So you get to do it your own way. And, and it all sends an interesting, different message. And finally on that, I thought it was instructive that she didn't stop them from taking you out. So as I might have handled what you did slightly differently, I certainly would have handled it differently if I was Hillary Clinton. I think I would have tried to get them to stop and go, wait. Let me at least try to answer her question because it's a legitimate one, right? And she didn't do that, and she just got back to her talking points.
Not only did she not stop them from taking me out, but after I left, she said, okay, let's get back to the issues. So it's clear to me that like what I was bringing up wasn't really an issue for her or the Clinton campaign.
Yeah, boy, did she handle that poorly, right? Yes. Because it was almost dismissive, right? I'm not going to answer your question. Now let's get back to the important things that adults talk about, which is not the issues that matter to you and the African American community and the enormous incarceration in this country, but the issues I want to talk about, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, boy, if I was on her campaign, I'd be giving her a note or two, but I'm definitely not on her campaign.
Great.
Okay, so can I ask, and I don't know the answer to this, obviously, but have you made up your mind on who you're going to vote for?
I haven't. And I have been asked a lot of questions about that. And I think that, like, I just want to say that, like, whoever I'm going to vote for, it's going to be because I held them accountable. And I was able to think about their record in a way that made me feel like I could trust them at the end of the day as a voter and as a citizen and as a Black person and as a queer person and as a person who cares about, like, the many kinds of injustices that are, like, acted upon all of us all the time. Yeah, that's all I want to say about that. Like, I want people to focus on the fact that I interrupted a Hillary Clinton fundraiser. Like, that's why I did this. Not to talk about who I am or am not going to vote for president. I want to really use this as an opportunity to think about the candidate that is Hillary Clinton and the violence that I believe Hillary Clinton represents.
Yeah, and for people who might not understand that, we always talk about the violence of outsiders, in the extreme case, terrorists, etc. But we never talk about the violence of insiders, state violence, right? So, and part of state violence is to say, I'm going to deprive you of your liberty. Or in some cases, in the case of death row, I'm going to deprive you of your life. And, we found out through the Innocence Project, oops, we put a lot of people on death row who were not guilty, right? And so that is a form of state violence. And obviously we had extreme state violence in the days of slavery, Jim Crow. I mean, it does not get any more state violence than slavery, right? Let alone all the things that ensued from that. But what I think Ashley's trying to point out is that state violence still exists today. It's just in a different form. And yes, of course, it's gotten better since the horrible days of slavery, et cetera. But that doesn't mean that the problem is solved. Do I have that right, Ashley?
That's about right. I would say that, like, things look different now, especially when you think about technology. So I don't want to say that, I don't want to make value judgments about, like, how those violences have impacted people's lives, but I want us to think about a little bit more critically about, like, how those violences impact people's lives in a different way than how they did during slavery.
Okay, that's certainly fair.
I think, yeah.
We've had a serious and important conversation. I want to end on a light note. That house looks so lovely. Did you at least get some good hors d'oeuvres for your $500?
Yes, I did. There was great food.
I knew it. I am such a fat ass. I looked at that house and thought, I bet they have great appetizers.
It was great. And drink and food and lighting and everything was good except the impending violence.
Right, except for when they removed you from the building.
Right.
All right, Ashley Williams clearly took an act of courage to do that and at least brought Hillary Clinton's a little bit record on African Americans a little bit clearer and more into the light. So thank you for doing that. We appreciate it, and thank you for talking to us on the Young Turks.
Thanks for having me, y'all.